On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Hunter Higgins, one of the top players in the state of Kansas for the class of 2026, is a Jayhawk, committing to Lance Leipold, who's cooking in the class of 2026.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to the everydayers catching all our shows. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, and find us on YouTube where you can like and subscribe. We've got a bonus episode for you today as Lance Leipold right now is really getting things going in the class of 2026 for KU football. The latest commit is Hunter Higgins, a class of 2026 defensive end who's a 3-star, 4-star, depending where you look, who is a local kid, too, in the state from Maize South in the Wichita area. So we're going to get into a little bit of that, the class of 2026, the future defensive end room, what Higgins brings to the table, all that and more on today's bonus episode of the show. So Hunter Higgins, he is a 3-star, 4-star, depending where you look again, Maize South High School. He committed to Kansas over his other finalists were Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Also had offers to Kansas State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and more. This was a very big deal for KU to land this kid. He becomes the 4th commit for Kansas in the class of 2026, where I think it's very fair to say, like, early on, this class looks awesome for Lance Leipold and company. Obviously, you got to keep it together. You got to keep recruiting these kids. You got to keep recruiting other kids and round out the class. But this is an unbelievable start for KU. And they're cooking, I guess you could say, in 2 ways. The first is in state. So of the 4 commitments for KU now in the class of 2026, 3 of them are from commits in the state of Kansas. 2 of them are from the Wichita area, and 1 is from Manhattan of those 3 in the state of Kansas. And obviously the player from Manhattan and JJ Dunnigan, like typically you would imagine the guy from Manhattan would go to Kansas State. I know with Wichita, it is a little bit split up. You get some people who are fans of KU, some people are fans of K-State, some are fans of Wichita State, right? You get a little more diversity in terms of who fans are rooting for. But I don't know, under my impression, it seems like they're, for the players that are coming out of Wichita in the past, I would say more of them seem to end up at Kansas State than at Kansas. But it feels like Kansas is starting to make inroads in that way, and this becomes your second recruit or commit in this class from the Wichita area. You've also had commits in past classes, too, from the Wichita area now as well. Now, the second reason why you're cooking isn't just that this is clearly showing that you are, the hard work you have put to try to improve in-state recruiting seems to be really paying off at this point. But the second is just you're just cooking overall. Like, regardless of where these kids are from, plus your 4th commit who's from the West Coast, it looks to be a pretty good class early on. Like, JJ Dunnigan is an 88 graded 3-star. How the 24/7 grading scale works is once you're a 90 grade, you become a 4-star. So he's almost a 4-star. And there's been some talk that Dunnigan could even be moved up soon when they do their updated rankings because of strong play. So maybe he even ends up an 89 or a 90 graded 4-star. Who knows? As is, like, Dunnigan would already be the 4th highest graded recruit of this year's class for KU. Then you look at Lenny Brown. He has offers to Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, like pretty much a bunch of Big 12 schools, West Coast schools. And he's somebody who is seen as being a good player that you have in tow. Now you have Higgins, who's an 89 graded 3-star by 24/7 Sports. He's literally 1 notch away from being a 4-star in the class. Jaylen Mason's unranked right now, but like it seems like people are high on what he could be. So, I mean, this is a phenomenal start to the class, I think, in both ways. And let's get into what exactly Higgins brings to the table, as well as the future of the defensive end room. This is Locked On Jayhawks. This episode of the show is brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. And, one of the things about the holiday season is you might feel like you're all over the place. You might feel like you're messy, and you just want to kind of get back to your space and have it refreshed. Well, what better way to refresh besides tidying up and clearing out to give you just a new look? And Wayfair has everything you need all within your budget. I'm talking furniture. They have outdoor stuff, which obviously you don't need right now, but you can stock up on it for the summer and the spring. They have bedding and bath. They have rugs. They have baby and kids items. They have stuff for your kitchen. They have stuff for your pet. Everything you can imagine. They even have a little sale tab on the website that if you just want to see, hey, what's available, what's on sale right now. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair.com, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, continuing on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks with Hunter Higgins, the commit who is going to KU. Let's get some info on Higgins. He's listed at 6'5", and depending on what site you look at, between 240 and 245 pounds, which, I mean, that's good size for already being in high school, being a junior in high school, right? When we talk a lot about the strong side defensive end position at KU, that's a position that is probably a little more behooved for players who are 250, 255, 260. The fact that he's already 240, 245, has another year of high school ball and would have time with you makes me think he could easily be a future strong side defensive end for you, that he'll have enough, muscle and weight to be able to do that. But he is an 89 graded 3-star on 24/7 Sports, which means he is as close to being a 4-star there as possible. He comes in as the number 4 player in the state, the number 27 edge rusher across the country, and 24/7 Composite lists him as a top 450 national recruit. I say all the time, if you're getting top 1,000 national recruits, if you're Kansas, that's a good place to be. You're getting top 500s, that's a much better place to be, right? You look at Rivals, he is listed as a 4-star on Rivals. He's given a 5.8 grade and a 4-star over there. So you can call him a 4-star, and that is totally accurate. On 3, also lists him as a 87.6, graded 3-star, who is the number 5 player in Kansas, 43rd ranked defensive lineman, and a top 400 player nationally. So, this is a very big get for KU, whether it's in-state or not. But obviously it is in-state, and that, I think, adds even more to this, right? Because it feels like you're building a momentum there. Now, as a junior at Maize South, he totaled 43 tackles, 11 sacks, 7 more TFLs, which for some reason on his Max Preps profile, normally sacks count to TFLs too, so technically he should have 18 tackles for loss. But nonetheless, that was on his Max Preps profile, which had him playing 8 games. That's incredible stats for a defensive end in 8 games. Now, the highlights I watched, which I was only able to find highlights from his sophomore season, which it made it even more impressive for me because I came away very impressed from what I watched, and that was when he was a sophomore. I can only imagine what he was doing as a junior. I can only imagine what he's going to do next year as a senior, but from the highlights I watched, seemed like a very instinctive player who was super aware in the running game, had a, I think, good kind of power shedding swim move and good strong hands, it seemed like. Did a good job of chasing runners and shedding blocks. I was really impressed with, I know obviously the highlights show he had, or the stats show he had 11 sacks this past season. I was really impressed with the run defense too. And again, those highlights become even more impressive when you figure what he could be this next year in the 2025 to 2026 academic year for him when he'll be a senior. So let's get to the future of the defensive end room, where he could peg into all that and find early playing time. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Our episode of the show today is brought to you by Rocket Money, which can help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you're paying for twice. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Plus, they have their subscription tracker where you can cancel services you're not using, and they have their goals feature where you can automatically set aside money for your future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That is rocketmoney.com/locked on, rocketmoney.com/locked on. Finishing things up on today's bonus episode with Lance Leipold grabbing another high-end recruit in-state in Hunter Higgins. What does the future of the defensive end room look like? Well, you look at the 2025 season when Higgins will still be a senior in high school. Justice Finkley, who you just brought in, check out that bonus episode if you haven't already, from Texas. Dean Miller, who was your sack leader this past season, they're both seniors, so they'll graduate, and those are your 2 probably projected starters in 2025. So you look at 2026 when Higgins will join, already you're going to have a competition for who the starters are going to be. Now, there is a chance that Dean Miller, who's a former JUCO guy, could he get an extra year or something with the whole Diego Pavia thing? Entirely possible. We'll wait and see on that. But then you look at 2026, assuming Miller and Finkley are gone. Dylan Brooks at that point would be a redshirt senior. By Jobe would be a redshirt junior. And then you would have this group of freshmen and redshirt freshmen, Adrian Holley, Garrett Martin, Dak Brinkley, Caleb Redd, who would all be basically sophomores or redshirt freshmen at that point in time. And then you fast forward another year in 2027, Dylan Brooks would be gone. By Jobe would be a senior. At this point, you'd have a second-year player in Hunter Higgins. Like, I don't know how it's all going to sort out because there's a lot of talent in the defensive end room, but I do know this. Hunter Higgins is a very good player, and I would not be betting against him to, not get playing time at some point in his career. Now, does that come in year one? Does it come in year two? Does it come in year three? I don't entirely know, but I do know also that Kansas rotates their defensive ends. So even if you're, in year two, the second string defensive end, you're going to get a good amount of playing time, right? And I think that's what you're doing here. If you're Kansas, you are stacking up talent over the long term with Holley, Martin, Brinkley, and Redd, and I guess Jobe to a certain extent, who is a year older than some of those guys, but that you're basically saying, hey, we're going to have a good depth of players that we're going to be able to rotate and constantly have good players, but also we're giving ourselves multiple bites at the apple, so to speak, that one of these can hit as being like this all Big 12 level defensive end. And I feel really good about the future of that defensive end room. You had Higgins, you had Finkley. I feel good about the current and the future for the defensive end room right now for KU. That'll do it for this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out our full episode today, which was a preview of the Kansas-Iowa State game, which you can find anywhere you get your podcasts or on our YouTube page. And we'll be back tonight as well to recap whatever happens in the Kansas-Iowa State game. And obviously, if there's more recruiting news, we'll get to that too. So this has been Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.